Okay, we are live. So for those listening at home, welcome to the Live from the Sword Coast podcast. My name is Kevin Madison, and this is my eighth entry in the RPG a Day series for 2017. Today's question, if you're joining us for the first time, RPG a Day has 31 questions that will be asked and answered on a daily basis. Today is day 8. And the question is, what is a good RPG to play for sessions of 2 hours or less? I guess one of the things I would say just from the outset here is that anything less than 2 hours is probably going to be a challenge to try and do anything meaningful, unless you're playing like a lunch hour game that you're playing multiple times a week or something like that. Like, I mean, we did that in grade school. I don't know how we did, but without enough time to actually, get into the actual meat of a game, 2 hours is probably your bare minimum for, I think, to try and accomplish a complete session. So I appreciate the question says 2 hours or less, but I'm going to suggest that 2 hours for something that's going to be done in one is going to be a bare minimum. I'm also going to assume that you're not, you're not just going to play your ongoing campaigns, because that's obviously an easy answer. So what RPGs would be good for just a 2 hour one shot, I think, is what the question is actually asking. So what I'm assuming is that the question is assuming that you're going to be using pre-gen characters or relatively easy to create characters, because in 2 hours, depending on the game, you don't really have a lot of time to chew up to create new characters. So I've got 3 suggestions with those caveats in mind. What would be a good option? So depending on whether your flavor is fantasy, is sci-fi, or really more space opera, or it's horror, I have 3 suggestions, and I'll include links in the notes below to these 3 things. Fantasy one, obviously, is Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. The reason I suggest that over any other fantasy game is because the game plays just incredibly quickly. It's very, very easy for people to grok what their characters can do and to understand what the rules are. More so than maybe any other edition, there's less time spent deliberating what you want to do in your turn. Even spells are fairly simplified. And there are free versions of the rules available online, so it doesn't cost you anything to do that. As well, there are tons of free adventures available online as well for all sorts of editions, and it is relatively easy to modify those things to 5th edition. So regardless of whatever edition the game is for, it would be easy to put that together. And in terms of the one shots, there are all sorts of short, done in one session dungeons that are available online as well too, and I'll bet you can get those done in about 2 hours for D&D 5th. So that's my suggestion for fantasy. For sci-fi, or rather, I guess science fantasy, I would suggest the beginner kit for Star Wars: Edge of the Empire. I mentioned this earlier this week, but it's a great game. The beginner kit has all the dice, and it has pre-gen characters in there, and it really starts you, in medias res. It's a great starting adventure for a campaign if you choose to go on with it. But in 2 hours, you can easily get it done. There's lots of fun stuff that happens. You fight stormtroopers, you fight Gamorrean guards, you steal a starship, you get involved in a dogfight with TIE fighters. You have to, I don't know. There's just all sorts of fun Star Wars-y stuff that you do in the course of that adventure, and it's an easy thing to do in 2 hours. And the final suggestion I'll have is is for horror, is Call of Cthulhu. Now, this one is a bit of I'm breaking the rules a little bit, because you would have to generate a character. The link I'm going to include is a link to the quick start rules for 7th edition Call of Cthulhu. If you're not familiar with the game, Call of Cthulhu is a horror role-playing game. It's really the first horror role-playing game that features themes of cosmic horror, where man's the horror comes from your realization of how little mankind, I suppose, means, or humankind means in the grand scope of the universe. There's no benevolent gods. There's just unfathomably powerful and unknowable alien entities that really drive the engine of the universe, and mankind is just a speck in comparison. The quick start, I noticed as well too, features my favorite Call of Cthulhu, or at least favorite first Call of Cthulhu adventure. It's called The Haunting, and up until, I actually don't know. I didn't own 7th edition, so I don't know if it was in that. I have 8th edition, and it's not in that one, but it was in almost every other version of the core rules. So it's got a great pedigree behind it as well too, and it's fun. It's a really fun investigative thing. It's got some really spooky scenes in it. So your characters, while the players would have to generate characters, that would take no more than, like, if you're really moving at a clip. I guess you could pre-gen the characters for the players and have them ready to go. Or if you want to sit down and create characters, it would take you half an hour, I think, because it's really, they give you some set numbers. It's not the full character generation rules that you get from the full game. But it's great. It's a really fun adventure, and it really, I think, captures the spirit of Call of Cthulhu. And I'm pretty sure you have to be a diligent DM to keep that story moving, because it can really, Call of Cthulhu can bog down in a lot of ifs and whats, or so you would want to be mindful of your time in that. But yeah, I think that would be a good choice for that too. So there's 3 suggestions for games that you could do in 2 hours and have a meaningful session out of them. Tomorrow's question is, what is a good RPG to play for about 10 sessions? That's actually a fairly easy answer as well too. I've got 2 games in mind that I think will be interesting to talk about for that. One of which is one of my personal favorite games right now too. So, but I will save that for tomorrow. So anyway, I hope you folks are enjoying these series of videos. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this, please don't hesitate to leave a note in the comments below, and I'll be sure to respond. Otherwise, hope if you're watching this when this is at the time of the recording or live, I hope the week is off to a good start for you, and I will see you folks again tomorrow for the next question.